Invocation to the Supreme God, to the Great Divine Father and the Great Divine Mother. Thank you for your priceless blessings, for your divine light, divine love, divine power, divine healing, guidance, mercy, help, and protection. We thank you. To our great spiritual teacher, to all the great spiritual teachers, to all the great gods and goddesses, to all the great ones, we very, very humbly thank you for your great blessings. Thank you so much. To the great Swami Rama, to his great teacher Bengali Baba, we thank you for your great blessings. Thank you so much. All right, let us start the study session for today. We are in chapter where we will be talking about Maharshi Ramana. And yeah, let's do this, okay? Maharshi Ramana. We've crossed about 55% of the book, 45% still remaining approximately. All right. Dr. T.N. Datta, a prominent physician from Gajipur, UP, wrote to me that he was coming to see me at Nasik, where I was living. After visiting, he told me his reason for coming. He said he was very anxious to take me with him to Arunachal. Arunachal जो है वो साउथ इंडिया में जगह है, वहाँ पे ये नॉर्थ ईस्ट का अरुणाचल प्रदेश नहीं है, ठीक है? Arunachal in South India to have darshan of Maharshi Ramana. In the winter of 1949, we left for Arunachal. My stay at this ashram was brief, but very pleasant. During those days, Maharshi Ramana was observing silence. There were several foreign students staying in the ashram. Shastriji, one of his prominent disciples, would give discourses, and Maharshi Ramana would sit quietly. मतलब इनके जो डिसाइपल थे दत्ता जी, वो इनको लिख के गए, वो स्वामी रामा को लेके गए अरुणाचल साउथ इंडिया में महर्षि रमन्ना से मिलने के लिए. इनके जो प्रोमिनेंट डिसाइपल जो थे शास्त्री जी, वो टॉक देते थे और महर्षि रमन्ना क्वाइटली बैठे रहते थे साइड में. There was one thing that I found in his presence which was very rare and which I seldom found elsewhere. For those whose hearts were open to that voice of silence which was perennially radiating in the ashram, just sitting near him was enough to answer any question arising from within. It is true that to be in the presence of a great man is the same as experiencing Savikalp Samadhi. Samadhi with seed or with a form. जो समाधि आपको बुद्धिक प्लेन पे होती है उसको बोलते हैं सब विकल्प समाधि. Maharshi Ramana did not have a physical guru. He is the greatest and holiest man born on the soil of India within 100 years period, said Dr. Radhakrishnan. I think Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan जो है वो इंडिया के I think first president है, I think, right? A glance of such a great man purifies the way of the soul. Wow. According to Maharshi Ramana, contemplating on the single query, who am I, can lead the aspirant to the state of self-realization. Through this method of contemplation, the foundation stone of the philosophies of the both East and West, it was revived again by Maharshi Ramana. The entire Vedanta means the end of the Vedas. The entire Vedanta philosophy was brought into practice by the Maharshi. He put Iliad in a nutshell. By knowing oneself, one knows the self of all. The very simple, profound method of self-inquiry is accepted by both Easterners and Westerners. तो वो बेसिकली ये बता रहे हैं कि जैसे यहाँ पे लिखा हुआ है कि महर्षि रमन ने बोला कि बस आप इस चीज पे इंक्वायर करो कि हु एम आई नॉट जस्ट टेक्सचुअली कि हम सोल हैं या हम क्या हैं. मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंटली हम इस सिचुएशन में क्या हैं? इस सिचुएशन में आर वी ट्रूथफुल टू द मैक्सिमम लेवल? आर वी सेपरेटिव? और व्हाट आर वी इन दिस सिचुएशन? मतलब सोल अपने आप को कैसे रिप्रेजेंट कर पा रही है इस सिचुएशन में, वो एक तरीके से आई थिंक ही इज सेइंग कि बी अवेयर, बी अवेयर, बी अवेयर, बी अवेयर ऑल द टाइम। एंड वेरी वेरी जूसी इन इंफॉर्मेशन। मतलब वेदांता की जो फिलॉसफी है उसको दोबारा एकत्रित करने के लिए, दोबारा साथ में लाने के लिए इनका जो एफर्ट गया है वो सुपर सुपर कमेंडेबल एक्चुअली। सो अमेजिंग। After 5 days in the spiritually vibrant atmosphere of Arunachala, we came back to Nasik. After visiting this great sage, I decided to resign the dignity and prestige of Shankaracharya. For a renunciate like myself, leading such a busy life had become burdensome and boring. My visit to Arunachal and the darshan of the Maharshi only added fuel to that fire which was already burning within me. Renounce thee, and you will attain. This echoed in my heart so powerfully that my stay at Nasik became more and more impossible. It was not easy for me to run away, abruptly leaving all the responsibilities, but one day the courage came to me and I left Nasik for my Himalayan home. मतलब basically वो छोड़ के चले आए वहां से, and he left it. I have a firm conviction that no one can be enlightened by anyone else, but sages inspire and give inner strength, without which self enlightenment is impossible. In today's world, human beings do not have any example to follow. There is no one to inspire them, and that is why enlightenment seems to be so difficult. Great sages are the source of inspiration and enlightenment. महर्षि रमन्ना ये हैं। श्री औरबिंदो, जिन्होंने कि वो पौंडीचेरी के वहां जो ऑरविल है वो बसाया है। मीटिंग विद श्री औरबिंदो, it was unbearable for me to stay in the demanding environment of Nasik, and I thought of visiting Pondicherry and meeting the mother and Sri Aurobindo. तो जो द मदर थी वो एक्चुअली श्री औरबिंदो की डिसाइपल थी और एक वेस्टर्नर थी, मतलब इंडियन नहीं थी। तो कभी आप पढ़ेंगे तो आपको उनका एक्चुअल नाम भी मालूम हो जाएगा, बट द मदर जो थी वो इनकी डिसाइपल थी, काफ़ी स्पिरिचुअली वो भी काफ़ी एडवांस थी। Students of this ashram were very devoted and firm in the conviction that the way of life they led was supreme. The day I arrived at Pondicherry, there was a concert given by a famous musician who was a disciple of Sri Aurobindo. The mother was kind enough to arrange for me to stay in one of the quarters and to hear the devotional songs sung by that great devotee. My stay in Pondicherry for 21 days gave me enough time to strengthen the aspirations which I had received at the ashram of Maharishi Ramanna in Arunachal. During those days of my inner turmoil, I was very restless. On one side, I was being pulled by renunciation, and on the other side, by the call of duty which had been assigned to me. मतलब उस उनके अंदर ना उस टाइम पे वो खिंचाव चल रहा था कि मुझे एनलाइटनमेंट की तरफ बढ़ना है और काम जो है मुझे दूसरी तरफ खींच रहा है, पर काम भी ड्यूटी है, तो उसे ऐसे कैसे छोड़ दिया जाए। तो ये उनके दिमाग में उस टाइम पे एक क्या बोलते हैं, टग ऑफ वॉर चल रहा था। So, इसमें ये लिखा हुआ है कि ड्यूरिंग दोज डेज ऑफ माई इनर टर्मोइल आई वॉज वेरी रेस्टलेस. On one side, I was being pulled by renunciation, and on the other side, by the call of duty which had been assigned to me. While at Pondicherry, I met Sri Aurobindo several times, and he was kind enough to talk to me. His personality was very overpowering and inspiring. I started respecting his modern and intellectual approach of integral yoga. I want to give you the gist of what I understood this philosophy to be. Sri Aurobindo's philosophy is described as integral non-dualism. This is an approach which seeks to understand reality in its fundamental oneness. The differences which we observe are looked upon as developments taking place within the framework of all-inclusive unity of the Absolute. दोबारा इसको मैं एक बार दोबारा पढ़ता हूँ. This is an approach which seeks to understand reality in its fundamental oneness. The differences which we observe are looked upon as developments taking place within the framework of the all-inclusive unity of the Absolute. Integral non-dualism erases the distinctions of ethics, religion, logic, and metaphysics. Sri Aurobindo's conviction is that absolute reality, in its essence, is non-dual, non-conceptual, and logically indefinable. It is only accessible to direct experience and through the penetrative insight of pure spiritual intuition. According to non-dualism, Advaita, reality is beyond materialism, causation, structure, and number. This same conviction is expressed in the philosophy of Nirgun Brahman in Vedanta, in the concept of Shunyata in Buddhist philosophy, in the concept of Tao in Chinese philosophy, and in the concept of Tattvita, Tattvit, Tattva, Tattvatiya, Tattvatiya, Tattvatita. Wow. Tattvatita in Tantra. Tattvatita. Okay, great. सो आई थिंक वो एक तरीके से जहां तक मुझे समझ में है वो ये बता रहा है कि जो एब्सोल्यूट रियलिटी जो है वो नॉन ड्यूअल होती है, उसमें कोई स्ट्रक्चर, कोई कॉज या कुछ भी चीजें नहीं होती हैं, इसमें स्टार्टिंग एंड वगैरह कुछ नहीं होता. तो ये बता रहे हैं कि बाकी फिलोसफीज में भी एग्जैक्टली सेम चीज ही बोली हुई है कि तत्वतता जो तंत्रास का होता है, शून्यता जो 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 बुद्धिस्ट का होता है, बाकी भी जो नाम दिए हैं उन सब में एक ही चीज जो है मतलब क्लियरली बताई गई है कि हर की जो एब्सोल्यूट रियलिटी है उसका कोई एथिक्स नहीं, कोई रिलीजन नहीं, कोई, ये सब जो है ऊपर ऊपर की चीजें, सुपरफिशियल लेयर्स होती हैं. अंडरलाइन टीचिंग जो है सबकी एग्जैक्टली सेम है, इसलिए इंटीग्रल नॉन ड्यूलिज्म है. सब जगहों पे, हर रिलीजन में, हर इसमें जो भी टीचिंग दी गई है, अगर आप उसका छिलका बाहर से खींचोगे तो आपको अंदर एक ही चीज मिलने वाली है, बिल्कुल एक चीज. ये इंपॉर्टेंट है. मैं आपको एग्जांपल देता हूँ. जैसे कि आप लोगों में से कितने कितने लोग जो कभी विंडोज मतलब जैसे कि लैपटॉप वगैरह पे काम अगर कर चुके हैं, तो आपको पता होगा कि अलग अलग तरह के ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम भी होते हैं. जैसे कि एक होता है मैक, मतलब मैक ओएस, फिर एक होता है लिनक्स, है ना. लिनक्स जो होता है एग्जाम्पल दो पार्ट्स में डिवाइडेड होता है, एक को बोलते हैं कर्नल, एक को बोलते हैं शेल. शेल और कर्नल, कर्नल का मतलब होता है जो कि बिल्कुल आपके हार्ड डिवाइसेस से या ड्राइवर से टॉक करता है, मतलब ये एक्चुअल चीज कंट्रोल करता है. शेल जो होता है इसके ऊपर की लेयर होती है जो कि यूजर इंटरफेस बनाती है. अब क्यों बात करना जरूरी इसके बारे में कि कर्नल ऑलमोस्ट सबका सेम ही होता है, भले शेल अलग हो. एग्जैक्टली सेम, प्रिसाइजली सेम होता है कर्नल सबका, शेल भले अलग अलग हो. बिकॉज कर्नल होता है वो बेसिक फंडामेंटल चीज होती है उसकी, उसको सडनली चेंज नहीं किया जाता. ठीक है. Okay. The philosophy of Tantra consistently maintains that one can advance spiritually by awakening the latent primal force called Kundalini. When this spiritual potential is systematically channeled along the higher levels, living becomes effortless, spontaneous, and attuned to the ultimate goal of existence. Vaishva, Vaishnavism, which means जो लोग जो Vaishnavites होते हैं, Vaishnavism recommends the method of love and devotion through wholehearted self-surrender to God. Christian mysticism and Sufism has a close resemblance to Vaishnavism in this respect. Let thy will, not mine, be done is their secret of spiritual growth. Vedanta, by contrast, lays stress upon the method of contemplation and self-inquiry. It includes discrimination between the self and the not self, and then the renunciation of the emotional attachments to the not self. As soon as false identifications with the not self are removed, the indwelling light of truth is revealed. अलग अलग मेथड्स में क्या क्या तरीके हैं सेल्फ रियलाइजेशन वो बता रहे हैं कि तंत्र में जैसे कुंडलिनी अवेकन करना तरीका होता है और उसको जैसे जैसे ऊपर लेके आया जाता है सिस्टमैटिक तरीके से लिविंग जो होती है एफर्टलेस हो जाती है, स्पॉन्टेनियस हो जाती है और अल्टीमेट गोल से लिंक करने लगती है। जो लव का या जो वैष्णवाइट का जो तरीका है वो है डिवोशन एंड सेल्फ सरेंडर टू गॉड। क्रिश्चियंस का तरीका जो है और सूफीज्म का तरीका जो है कि लेट योर विल बी डन नॉट माइन, मतलब मैं अपने विल को आपकी विल के साथ कंप्लीटली अलाइन कर दूंगा ताकि सिर्फ आपकी ही विल बस मेरे थ्रू एक्ट हो। नेक्स्ट वेदांता जो है वो ये बोलता है कि सेल्फ इंक्वायरी करो अपने ऊपर, डिस्क्रिमिनेशन करो कि मतलब कि क्या सेल्फ है क्या सेल्फ नहीं है। जैसे जैसे आपके धागे खुलते जाएंगे उतनी ही आपकी लाइट जो है अंदर से और वो स्ट्रांग होती जाएगी। सो ये जो है अलग अलग फिलोसफीज हैं, सबका गोल बार भी सेम है। According to Aurobindo's integral philosophy, both the lower nature and the higher nature of man and the universe spring from the same ultimate reality. The lower nature is the physical force in the world and the source of instinctual drives in the unconscious mind. Man's higher nature is composed of pure consciousness and spiritual aspirations. It evolves out of the matrix of the lower nature through the awareness of the ultimate creative force called Shakti. Aurobindo calls this force Divine Mother. Man has to faithfully be aware of this force in order to attain the realization of the Absolute. एक बार इसको दोबारा पढ़ेंगे, बहुत अच्छा ये वाला। According to Aurobindo's integral philosophy, both the lower nature and the higher nature of man and the universe spring from the same ultimate reality. The lower nature is the physical force in the world and the source of instinctual drives in the unconscious mind. मुझे एक सेकंड दीजिए, कोई शायद डोर पे आया हुआ, एक सेकंड। सॉरी या सो इट सेज कि ना लोअर नेचर जो होता है वो मैन और यूनिवर्स में फिजिकल फोर्सेस के जैसा होता है जो इंस्टिंक्चुअल ड्राइव वगैरह पे काम करता है और अनकॉन्शियस माइंड में होता है। हायर नेचर इज कंपोज्ड ऑफ प्योर कॉन्शियसनेस एंड स्पिरिचुअल एस्पिरेशंस। It evolves out of the matrix of the lower nature through the awareness of the ultimate creative force called Shakti. जैसे जैसे आप शक्ति के जो कि नेचर की क्रिएटिव फोर्स है, जैसे जैसे आप उसके बारे में अवेयर होते जाएंगे तो आपका जो हायर नेचर है वो इवॉल्व होगा, सो कॉल्ड लोअर नेचर के मैट्रिक्स से इवॉल्व हो जाएगा बाहर। Aurobindo calls this force divine mother Shakti को। Man has to faithfully be aware of this force in order to attain the realization of the Absolute. This awareness implies a tranquil integration of the material and spiritual. According to Aurobindo, in quotes, the supraphysical can only be really mastered in its fullness when we keep our feet firmly on the physical. कितना बढ़िया बोला। The supraphysical can only be really mastered in its fullness when we keep our feet firmly on the physical. Amazing. The awareness is developed through two methods. The first is the integration of meditation with action. Through meditation, one tears the veil of ignorance. He thus realizes his true self, which is the very self of all. Through selfless and loving actions, one relates creatively with others. The second method of awareness of divine lies in the knowledge of the ascending and descending forces of consciousness. These powerful movements gradually expand the spiritual outlook and help one to rise to higher levels of consciousness. The descending movements brings down the light and the power of higher consciousness into all strata of our material existence. This consists of transforming the physical into effective channels of expression for universal love and all unifying truth. Complicated है रे language. ये ascending and descending forces of consciousness क्या है? ये मुझे समझ में नहीं आया बिकॉज आई थिंक मैं उनकी टेक्निक नहीं जानता हूँ तो आई डोंट नो. मुझे क्या लगता है ऑनेस्टली ये सेकंड लाइन पढ़ के कि कोई तरीका होगा कि वो लाइट को मटेरियल प्लेन से लेके आ सकते हैं मतलब मटेरियल चक जैसे कि हम हमारे जो प्रैक्टिसेस होती हैं हम हमारी भी छोड़ दीजिए जैसे कि जो क्रिया योगा जो होती है बाबा बाबा जी का जो क्रिया योगा है उसमें वो अगर आपकी स्पाइन ऐसी है स्पाइन अगर आपकी ये है तो वो मतलब डिवाइन फोर्सेस को पूरे लोअर चक्रास तक लेके आते हैं स्पाइन के थ्रू फिर ऊपर लेके जाते हैं फिर नीचे लेके आते हैं फिर ऊपर लेके जाते हैं फिर नीचे लेके आते हैं फिर ऊपर लेके जाते हैं. ये एक तरीका तो है जहाँ पे कि वो बोलते हैं कि असेंडिंग एंड डिसेंडिंग फोर्सेस ऑफ कॉन्शियसनेस कि अगर आप डिवाइन फोर्सेस को नीचे तक लेके आओगे तो वो स्पिरिचुअल लाइट है जो कि आपकी नीचे तक आ रही है. नीचे का मतलब लोअर चक्र यानी कि कॉन बेस कॉन्शियसनेस यानी कि एनिमलिस्टिक कॉन्शियसनेस तक आ रही है एक्चुअली इंस्टिंक्चुअल कॉन्शियसनेस तक आ रही है राइट. और उसको लिबरेट करिए धीरे धीरे करके. ये मेरा अभी तक का मन. आगे चलते. Integral non-dualism sees evolution as the progressive self-manifestation of the universal spirit in material conditions. The whole universe is an expression or play of the divine. Man's highest destiny is to be fully aware of the universal spirit and thus advance the cause of evolution. Therefore, the essence of integral yoga lies in the active and effective awareness of the individual with the superconscious divine. Sri Aurobindo synthesizes the ancient philosophy of Advaita in the belief that it is not necessary for modern man to realize the goal of non-dualistic asceticism through renunciation. वो बोल रहे हैं कि आपको renunciate करने बनने की जरूरत नहीं है. गोल अगर आपका नॉन ड्यूलिस्टिक मतलब नॉन ड्यूलिज्म अगर आपका गोल है तो आप घर पे रह के भी मॉडर्न मैन की तरह यू कैन realize it. Meditation in action with non-attachment also prepares the sadhak for awakening of the primal force Kundalini. Meditation in action with non-attachment also prepares the sadhak for awakening of the primal force Kundalini by the realization of the union of Shakti and Shiva. Humanity can be elevated to a higher levels of awareness. I was fully convinced that Sri Aurobindo's philosophy would have wide recognition by the modern minds of India, especially of the West. But I was accustomed to quiet and solitude and could not adjust to the numerous activities of the ashram like dramas, concerts, and tennis. I returned to Nasik and determined to leave for the Himalayas. The wave of bliss. I once visited Chitrakoot, one of the holy places where, according to the epic Ramayana, Lord Rama lived during his exile, Chitrakoot. This place is situated on the Vindhya range, one of the longest mountain ranges in India, Vindhyachal, I think, according to ancient tradition of Vairagi sadhus visit Vrindavan and Chitrakoot. Vrindavan for those who love Krishna, and Chitrakoot for those who love Rama. In other parts, in another part of the Vindhya range, in a holy place called Vindhyachal, there lived many Shakti worshippers. आपको अगर शक्ति की वर्शिपिंग याद है तो शायद आपको याद होगा कि एक टाइम पे जब स्वामी रामा जो है वो एक लेडी सेंट के पास रहने गए थे, मतलब रहने तो नहीं गए थे बट ही वेंट टू विजिट हर। पर वो बात बहुत कम करती थी, मतलब वहाँ पे 1-2 महीने वहाँ पे रहे हैं, बात करने की कोशिश भी की है, पर वो कभी भी रूम से बाहर नहीं आती थी एक्चुअली। और रात में 12 बजे जाती थी, 12 से लेकर 4 बजे के बीच में वो जाती थी, एक सामने एक छोटा टेम्पल था वहाँ पे पूजा करने के लिए। और जैसे ही वहाँ पे पूजा करती थी, मतलब जितनी भी देर तक वहाँ पे एक्चुअली पूजा करती थी वो, सो व्हाट हैपेंड वाज कि शी वो नेकेड बॉडी में पूजा किया करती थी, नेकेड होके। और वो बताते कि तुम अगर मुझे छू की गलती से तो यू विल डाई एट दैट टाइम। वो शक्ति की वर्शिपर थी, शक्ति की, आई डोंट नो क्या करती थी, पर शक्ति की वर्शिपर थी वो। एंड दैट इज एग्जैक्टली हाउ शी वुड वर्क। अब सेम यहाँ पे ये लिखा हुआ है कि दीज गाइस वर शक्ति वर्शिपर्स, जो विंध्याचल में जो रहते थे वो। ट्रैवलिंग टुवर्ड्स द फॉरेस्ट ऑफ रेवा स्टेट, I went to the Sanatan forest and there I met a Swami who was very handsome and highly educated in the Vedantic and Yogic tradition. He knew the scriptures and was a very brilliant sadhak, spiritual practitioner. He was later nominated as Shankaracharya of Jyotirma, Jyotirmaya Pitham, which is in the Himalayas on the way to Badrinath. His name was Brahmanand Saraswati. Brahmanand Saraswati. That's amazing. Shri Swami Brahmanand Saraswati. Okay. He used to live only on germinated gram seeds mixed with a little bit of salt. He lived on a hillock in a small natural cave near a mountain pool. I was led by the villagers to that place, but I did not find anyone there, and I became disappointed. The next day I went again and found a few footprints on the edge of the pool made by his wooden sandals. I tried, but I could not track the footprints. Finally, on the fifth day of effort, early in the morning before sunrise, I went back to the pool and found him taking a bath. I greeted him saying, Namo Narayanan, Namo Narayan, which is commonly used salutation among Swamis, meaning I bow to the divinity within you. Namo Narayan. He was observing silence, so he motioned for me to follow him to his small cave, and I did so gladly. This was the eighth day of his silence, and after staying in the night with him, he broke his silence and I gently spoke to him about the purpose of my visit. I wanted to know how he was living and the ways and methods of his spiritual practices. During our conversation, he started talking to me about Sri Vidya. Sri Vidya sadhana. Remember हमने बात की थी Sri Vidya sadhana के बारे में? Sri Vidya, the highest of the paths, followed only by accomplished Sanskrit scholars of India. It is a path which joins Raja Yoga, Kundalini Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Advaita Vedanta. You know, ये कुछ कुछ लगता है कि आध्यात्मिक योगा की तरह है, यहाँ पे कि 5 yogas come and you practice them. It is a path which joins Raj Yoga, Kundalini Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Advaita Vedanta. There are two book, but हमारे मतलब आध्यात्मिक योगा में कर्म योगा भी है, राज योगा, कुंडलिनी योगा, भक्ति योगा, ज्ञान योगा भी है, जो कि अद्वैत वेदांता वाला पार्ट भी है. एंड yeah, there are two books recommended by the teacher of this path, The Wave of Bliss and The Wave of Beauty. इनका नाम लिख लेना चाहिए, वरना याद नहीं रहेगा थोड़ा टाइम के बाद. द वेव ऑफ ब्लिस एंड द वेव ऑफ ब्यूटी. आई ऑल्सो रिकमेंड कि आप लोग भी प्लीज नाम लिख लीजिए, बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट नाम होंगे. The compilation of the two books is called Saundarya Lahiri in Sanskrit. There is another part of this literature called Prayoga Shastra, which is in manuscript form and is found only in the Mysore and Baroda libraries. No scholar can understand these spiritual yoga poems without the help of a competent teacher who himself practices these teachings. Later on, I found that Sri Vidya and Madhu Vidya are spiritual practices known to a few, only 10 to 12 people in all of India. I became interested in knowing that this science and whatever little I have today is because of it. In this science, the body is seen as a temple and the inner dweller Atman as God. A human being is like a miniature universe, and by understanding this, one can understand the whole of the universe and ultimately realize the absolute one. Finally, after studying many scriptures and learning various paths, my master helped me in choosing to practice the way of Sri Vidya. So basically, ये बोल रहे हैं कि इनके जो गुरुजी हैं, इन्होंने काफी सारे मतलब पाथ वाथ देखे वगैरह, बट इनके जो गुरुजी हैं स्वामी रामा के बंगाली बाबा, उन्होंने हेल्प किया कि तुम श्री विद्या का पाथ लो, डिवाइन मदर का पाथ लो या शक्ति का पाथ लो. In this path, the Kundalini fire is seen as the mother divine, and through yoga practices, it is awakened from the primal state and raised it to the highest of the chakras. The chakras are wheels of life which form our spiritual body and connect the entire flow of the consciousness. तो हम जो अरहटी योगा में जो कुंडलिनी योगा जो प्रैक्टिस करते हैं वो इसी का आउटकम है. मतलब दिस इज दे आर वेरी इंटरलिंक्ड, Sri Vidya sadhana and Kundalini yoga. The science of chakras is very terse, but if one knows the science well, it serves him on all levels. The chakras operate on the physical, psychological, energetic, mental, and spiritual levels. Again, ये हम सब लोग जानते हैं कि चक्रास जो होते हैं, इससे प्राणिक के लिए मालूम है एक्चुअली कि फिजिकल लेवल पे काम करते हैं जो कि ऑर्गन्स को कंट्रोल करते हैं, इमोशनल लेवल पे काम करते हैं और मेंटल लेवल पे काम करते हैं क्योंकि वो आपके थॉट्स एंड इमोशंस को रेगुलेट करते हैं या क्रिएट करते हैं. स्पिरिचुअल लेवल पे काम करते हैं बिकॉज आपकी स्पिरिचुअल फैकल्टीज जो है चक्रास की, उनको बोलते हैं सिद्धियां, वो उस लेवल पे लिंक्ड होती हैं. तो अलग अलग लेवल्स पे काम करते हैं. These energy centers correspond in the physical body to points along the spinal cord. Spine के through होता है, right? The lowest is located at the coccyx, the second in the sacral area, the third at the navel, fourth at the heart, fifth at the base of the throat, sixth at the point between the eyebrows, and the seventh at the crown of the head. The lowest chakras are the grooves towards which the lower mind rushes. ये बहुत अच्छा है, देखो. The lowest chakras are the grooves towards which the lower mind rushes. The heart, Anahata chakra, separates the upper hemisphere from the lower hemisphere and is accepted as a center of divine tranquility. इसीलिए हम लोग जो प्राणिक हीलिंग स्कूल में जो ट्विन हार्ट्स मेडिटेशन प्रैक्टिस करते हैं, वो हार्ट चक्रा को एक्टिवेट करने में बहुत काम आती है कि उसके एक्टिवेशन के बाद और क्राउन के अपर चक्र ज्यादा एक्टिवेट हो जाते हैं कंपेयर टू लोअर चक्र. सब में पावर रहती है बट अपर चक्र की लाइट बहुत बढ़ जाती है बिकॉज क्राउन खुल जाता है उसके बाद. इसलिए द हार्ट चक्र separates the upper hemisphere from the lower hemisphere and is accepted as the center of divine tranquility. Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity, and Judaism also recognize this center. That which is called Anahata Chakra in Hinduism is called the Star of David in Judaism, and Sacred Heart in Christianity. The higher chakras are the centers of upward traveling energy. There are many levels of consciousness from the heart chakra to the 1,000-petal lotus inside the crown of the head. When one sits erectly for meditation, these centers are aligned. Energy can be focused on one chakra or another. Developing the capacity to direct the flow of energy to the higher chakras is one aspect of spiritual development. So it says developing the capacity to direct the flow of energy to the higher chakras is one aspect of spiritual development. Knowledge of pranic vehicles, मतलब आपकी जो lower जो bodies हैं वो, is important if one wants to experience all the chakras systematically. There is a bulk of literature on the chakras in Hinduism and Buddhism, which was later explained and introduced by theosophical writers for the Western readers. Western writers have also written many books on the subject of chakras, although most of them, with the exception of those written by Sir John Woodroffe, are misleading, for they consist merely of second-hand information without anything to guide one's practice. Such misleading literature on a highly perfected science is found all over, even in health food stores. How ridiculous. Swami Brahmananda was one of the rare siddhas जो जिनकी फोटोग्राफ अभी ऊपर देखी थी इनकी ब्रह्मानंदा. Swami Brahmananda was one of those rare siddhas, accomplished ones, who had the knowledge of Sri Vidya. His authoritative knowledge of the Upanishads and especially of the Shankara's commentaries was superb. He was also a very good speaker. Swami Karpatri, a renowned scholar, was a disciple who requested him to accept the prestige and the dignity of Shankaracharya in the north, a seat which had been vacant for 300 years. Whenever he traveled from one city to another, people flocked in the thousands to hear him, and after his nomination as Shankaracharya, his followers increased. One thing very attractive about the way of teaching, his way of teaching, was his combination of the Bhakti and the Advaita systems. During my brief stay with him, he also talked about Madhusudan's commentary on the Bhagavad Gita. Swami Brahmananda had a Sri Yantra made out of rubies, and he showed it to me. He explained the way he worshipped it. It is interesting to note how the great sages direct all their spiritual, mental, and physical resources toward their ultimate goal. Among all the Swamis of India, I met only a few who radiated such brilliance and yet lived in the public, remaining unaffected by the world temptations and distractions. I stayed with him for only 1 week and then I left for Uttarkashi. The three schools of Tantra. I was asked by my master to go learn from a great tantric teacher who lived in the Malabar hills of South India. The teacher was 102 years old. He was calm, learned, and healthy. Though he lived a householder's life, he taught many advanced yogis and swamis the philosophy of Tantra. There is a vast amount of literature on the philosophy and science of Tantra, but it is not easily understood and is often misused. This highly advanced esoteric science has been practiced by Hindus, Jains, and Buddhists. The Khudabaksha Library of Patna, the Baroda Library, and the Madras Library are filled with manuscripts on the subject, but this literature is beyond the understanding of laymen. Also, competent teachers of Tantra are rarely available. However, properly practiced under a competent teacher, this path is the equal of any other spiritual path in self-enlightenment. तो ये बेसिकली तंत्र की बात कर रहे हैं अभी, जिसमें कि कुंडलिनी का वेकिंग किया जाता है लोअर चक्र से लेके पूरे ऑल द वे अप द क्राउन तक. According to the science of Tantra, male and female are two principles of the universe called Shiva and Shakti. These two principles exist within each individual. There are three main schools of Tantra: Kaula, Mishra, and Samaya. The Kaulas, or left-hand Tantras, worship Shakti, and their way of worship involves external rituals, including sexual practices. They meditate on the latent power within the Kundalini and awaken it at the Muladhara chakra, which is situated at the base of the spinal column. Laymen often misuse this path. देखिए, एक बार थोड़ा सा मिसयूजिंग का बात कर लेते हैं थोड़ा सा। अगर आप किसी, ये मेरा खुद का पर्सनल अंडरस्टैंडिंग नहीं है, ये किसी और ने मुझे बताया है, तो उनकी बात मैं आपको रिले कर रहा हूँ। तो अगर आप बेस और स्पाइन से अवेकन करने जाएंगे तो उसमें डेंजर्स एक्चुअली में बहुत सारे होते हैं, वो सबको ही पता है एक्चुअली। मैं आपको एक और डेंजर से अवेयर करवाता हूँ आज के दिन। अगर आपने लोअर चक्र से अवेकन कर दी, पर अगर वो सफिशिएंट, अगर आपका कैरेक्टर नहीं बिल्ट है, तो वो हार्ट चक्र से पास नहीं होगी एक्चुअली। और अगर वो हार्ट चक्र से पास नहीं होगी तो आपका हार्ट ब्लूम नहीं करेगा, आपका खाली सोलर प्लेक्सस तक आके बस रह जाएगा वो। या ये लोग क्या करते हैं कि सोलर प्लेक्सस तक लाके उसको रोक देते हैं एक्चुअली। तो सोलर प्लेक्सस, नेवल, मैंगमेंग, सेक्स, बेसिक चक्रास जो हैं, ये आपके बहुत पावरफुल, बहुत स्ट्रांग हो जाते हैं। ये चक्रास बाद में मटेरियलाइजेशन पर्सपेक्टिव के लिए यूज होते हैं, एंड इनएडवर्टेंटली इनको सेल्फ सेंट्रिक पर्पसेस के लिए यूज किया जाता है। फिर वन ऑफ द फॉर्म इज ब्लैक मैजिक। ब्लैक मैजिशियन क्या क्या होता है? इज समबडी जिसके पास जो वो बोलता है वो मटेरियलाइज हो जाता है। मतलब कुंडलिनी उन चक्रास में जगी हुई है जहां पे कि मटेरियलाइजिंग की पावर बहुत स्ट्रांग होगी। तो ये एक तरीके का मिसयूज जो है वो किया जाता है एक्चुअली तंत्र, इसलिए तंत्र का नाम खराब होता है बाहर। ये एक इंपॉर्टेंट वजह है कि तंत्र का नाम अच्छा क्यों नहीं हो पाया। लोग तांत्रिक्स को ऐसे एज अ डर्टी पीपल क्यों देखते हैं, सेल्फिश, और कोई पता नहीं क्या करते हैं, पता नहीं किसको इन्वोक करते हैं, पता नहीं किस तरह की। वो सच नहीं है। एक्चुअल तंत्र जो होता है दैट इज टू डू विद अवेकनिंग कुंडलिनी प्रॉपर्ली ऑल द वे। ये रियल तंत्र है, इट्स टेक्नोलॉजी, राइट? तंत्र टेक्नोलॉजी ऑफ अवेकनिंग द लेटेंट फायर, ये इसका रियल मीनिंग होता है। बट वो एक डिस्टॉर्शन जब हो जाते हैं तो डिस्टॉर्शन हो जाते हैं, उसके बाद फिर आप कोई कुछ नहीं कर सकता। आगे चलते हैं। सो दोबारा पढ़ते हैं। द कौलास और लेफ्ट हैंड tantrists worship Shakti, and their way of worship involves external rituals, including sexual practices. They meditate on that latent power within, called the Kundalini, and awaken it at the Muladhara chakra, which is situated at the base of the spinal column. Laymen often misuse this path. In the Mishra, or mixed or combined school, inner worship is combined with external practices. The latent force is awakened and led to the Anahata chakra, heart center, where it is worshipped. The purest and highest of Tantra is called Samaya, or the right hand path. It is purely yoga. It has nothing to do with any ritual or any form of worship involving sex. Meditation is the key, but this sort of meditation is quite uncommon. It is in this school, meditation is done on the thousand petal lotus, the highest of all. This method of worship is called Antaragya. The knowledge of Sri Chakra is revealed in this school. Sri Chakra मतलब क्या बोलते हैं, श्री विद्या साधना के लिए जो चक्र जो यूज होता है, क्या बोलते हैं उसको? ऊपर लिखा था कहीं पे, श्री यंत्र, सेम थिंग। Knowledge of the chakras, the nadis, subtle nerve currents, and pranas, vital forces, and a philosophical knowledge of life are required in order to be accepted as a disciple in the school. मतलब आपके पास ऑलरेडी काफी सारी नॉलेज होनी चाहिए before you're accepted as a disciple in the school. I was acquainted with all the three schools, but was initiated in the path of Samaya. My favorite books explaining the science are The Wave of Bliss. इसको मैं आई थिंक ऑर्डर करूंगा, बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट भी लग रही है। एंड द वेव ऑफ ब्यूटी, सौंदर्य लहरी। I stayed with this teacher for a month, learning the practices practical aspects of this science and studying various commentaries on these two scriptures. Then I returned to the mountains. The mystic philosopher Professor Ranade. Seven systems of Eastern philosophy. I often visited Dr. Ranade of Allahabad University, one of the finest exponents of Vedanta philosophy of his time. This matchless teacher and a great mystic was popularly known as Gurudev among his disciples. He took me to his Nimbal ashram later on. Among all the university scholars of India, I have the most respect for this great man. Whatever I have systematically learned about Indian philosophy was because of him. He taught me that Indian philosophy is divided into seven systems, which attempt to answer the most basic philosophical inquiries. These important questions are: who am I from? So, this is number one. Who am I, from where I have come, and why I have come? What is my relationship with the manifold universe and other human beings? Second questions are: what is the essential nature of my being? And what is the essential nature of the manifested world? मतलब पहला है कि मैं कौन हूँ, मैं कहाँ से आया हूँ. सेकंड ये है कि मेरा जो नेचर है, एसेंशियल नेचर वो क्या है, मैनिफेस्टेड वर्ल्ड का एसेंशियल नेचर क्या है. थर्ड है कि व्हाट इज द रिलेशनशिप ऑफ द सेंटर ऑफ द कॉन्शियसनेस एंड द ऑब्जेक्ट्स ऑफ द वर्ल्ड. वाओ, इट्स हेवी ड्यूटी क्वेश्चंस मैन. फोर्थ जो है, what is the nature of the forms and the names of the objects of the world? And how do they serve the essential nature of man or universal consciousness? What is the nature of the forms and the names of the objects? Okay. What are the guidelines for actions as long as we live in a natural body? Do we live after death? And sixth, what is truth? How do we arrive at rational conclusions or questions of truth? Good. The seven systems of Indian philosophy which address themselves to these issues are Vedanta philosophy, Yoga philosophy, Sankhya philosophy, Vaisheshika philosophy, Mimamsa philosophy, Nyaya philosophy, and Buddhism. The dates given for the teachers of the systems below have been determined by Western scholars. Scholars within these systems regard them as many millennia older. Vedanta में क्या लिखा है? I am self-existent. I am self-existent consciousness and bliss. I am मतलब you, the soul. There are not, these are not my attributes, but my very being. I do not come from anywhere or go anywhere, but rather I assume many forms, having many names. My essential nature is free from all qualifications and limitations. I am like an ocean, and all the creatures are like waves. The individual soul is essentially Brahman, all inclusive, all expansive. The genderless Om is its name. It is the nucleus and the universe, and the universe is its expansion. It is the absolute transcendent attributeless reality and also eternally embodies the capacity to bring to measure within itself its own inner Shakti. So this power of Brahman called Maya emanates and gives the appearance of becoming manifold. But in truth, there is no manifoldness, and the infinite never becomes finite. There is a superimposition of the finite. Complicated English, my God. There is superimposition of the finite on the infinite, which is eradicated by unveiling reality again. Then one realizes itself to be in Brahman as Brahman. He identifies himself with Brahman and becomes one with it. Below are some of the most important statements of the Vedanta philosophy as found in the Upanishads. एक इसमें important चीज ये है कि मेंटल कॉन्स्ट्रक्ट्स जो होते हैं वो डिवीजन पे काम करते हैं, मतलब सेगमेंटेशन में, फ्रैगमेंटेशन में, फाइनाइटनेस में, बाउंड्री को दिखाने में। बट वो ये बता रहे हैं, इन शॉर्ट इसमें एक इंपॉर्टेंट चीज ये है कि एब्सोल्यूट ट्रांसेंडेंट ऑल ब्लिस ऑल एक्सपेंसिव ऑल इंक्लूसिव जो नेचर है सोल का, वो तब एक्सपीरियंस होता है जबकि आप इसे ट्रांसेंड कर जाते हो, ये फाइनाइटनेस को। देन यू एक्चुअली मर्ज कॉस्मिकली, फिर कोई बाउंड्री एक्चुअली में नहीं रहती है। सो इंपॉर्टेंट स्टेटमेंट्स जो हैं वो ये हैं कि देयर इज नथिंग मैनिफोल्ड हियर, फ्रॉम डेथ टू डेथ he wanders who sees anything here as though it were manifold। मैनिफोल्ड का मतलब क्या है कि अलग अलग कंपार्टमेंट्स, मतलब चीजें अलग अलग हैं, जगहें अलग अलग हैं, मेरी बॉडी तुम्हारी बॉडी, मेरी चीज तुम्हारी चीज, मेरी प्रॉपर्टी तुम्हारा बैंक अकाउंट, अलग, तुम्हारा सेपरेटनेस है, मैनिफोल्डनेस है। ये सिर्फ मेंटल कॉन्स्ट्रक्ट्स हैं और आपके माइंड ने बहुत स्ट्रांगली बिलीव करके इसको रखा हुआ है। सो एज यू कंटिन्यू the teaching, as you continue in your practice of self-realization, these boundaries will disappear and the infinite will, completely coherent infinite will emerge. He who is tranquil dwells in Brahman, from whom the universe emanates and into whom it dissolves. All this is Brahman. Brahman is pure gnosis. Gnosis gnosis का मतलब होता है नॉलेज ऑफ स्पिरिचुअल मिस्ट्रीज, मतलब रियल अंडरलाइंग जो टीचिंग है, प्योर टीचिंग वो। दिस सेल्फ इज ब्राह्मण, दैट दाउ आर्ट, आई एम दैट, आई एम ब्राह्मण। The philosophy which was taught by the seers of the Vedas 2000 to 500 BC was passed down through a long line of sages such as Vyasa, Gaudapada, and Govindapada, the author of many ancient scriptures, who codified these ancient philosophies. Shankaracharya finally systematized the monastic schools in the 8th century AD, and many acharyas after him established various schools of non-dualistic and dualistic philosophies which differed from him. Yoga, second teaching. In the yoga system of philosophy, the individual soul is a seeker and cosmic consciousness is ultimate reality it finds within. The yoga accommodates all religions and all systems of philosophy as far as the practical aspects are concerned. While dwelling in the manifold phenomenon of the universe, the soul must take care of the material body, purifying and strengthening its capacity. In this system, the individual must practice the highest principle of behavior and the control of the various modifications of mind through the commitments called yama and niyama. By practicing stillness in posture and breath, one then transforms oneself by having control. So ये important है। देखिए जैसे आजकल के कोई भी जो स्पिरिचुअल स्कूल्स होते हैं वो हर ब्रीदिंग पे काम करते हैं, आपकी मटेरियल बॉडी को स्ट्रॉन्ग, मतलब फिजिकल बॉडी को स्ट्रॉन्ग करने के लिए काम करते हैं। वो बात है कि अगर आपकी फिजिकल बॉडी ही ढंग से काम नहीं करेगी तो योगा करना इम्पॉसिबल एक्चुअली, क्योंकि अगर आप स्टिल नहीं बैठ पाओगे, अगर आपकी बॉडी में उतनी कैपेसिटी नहीं होगी तो हायर एनर्जी आ ही नहीं पाएगी। अगर आपकी मेडिटेशन ब्लॉक्ड होंगी तो कोई मतलब ही नहीं बनता एक्चुअली, है ना। तो अब ये बता रहे हैं कि बाय प्रैक्टिसिंग स्टिलनेस इन पोस्चर एंड ब्रेथ, one then transforms oneself, having control over senses with concentration and meditation, and finally attain samadhi. तो ये वो फिजिकल वाला योगा नहीं है, ये बॉडी को या व्हीकल्स को रादर उस तरीके से प्रिपेयर करना कि आपसे कॉन्सेंट्रेशन और मेडिटेशन हो पाए और सोल जो है वो बीइंग अलाइव निकल जाए यहाँ से एंड इट गोस एंड इट मर्जेस विद द हायर सोल। The final goal of this system is to attain aloneness or kaivalya. This yoga system was also known several millennia before Patanjali, who codified it in the 1st century AD by compiling 196 aphorisms called the Yoga Sutras. The yoga and the Sankhya system of philosophy are alike. Let's close it down here down today. इसको बाद में पढ़ेंगे वरना फिर स्टार्ट हो जाएगा तो फिर खत्म करना पड़ेगा, ठीक है। Let's do a short blessing, everyone. Everyone, just be like this, okay? And be very internally conductive. So let's do closing prayer to the Supreme God, Divine Father, Divine Mother. Thank you for your great blessings. Thank you to our great spiritual teacher, to all the great spiritual teachers, to all the great gods and goddesses, to all the great, great ones. We very, very humbly thank you for your great blessings. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Take care. See you. See you. See you. See you. Bye-bye. Bye.